Hey bee lovers! Welcome back to another adventure in backyard beekeeping. Today, Sai and I did our first hive inspection, 1 week after installing our nuke. Before we opened up the hive, we did a lot of research and discussed decisions we would make based on what we found that bees were up to. We also talked about whether we wanted to do a single brood or double brood management system. We both decided to do a double brood for this first hive of ours and let the bees focus on getting established and not focus on honey production. So when we first opened up the hive, it was exciting to see how active the bees were. The first couple starter frames we checked did not have a lot of activity yet. It takes the bees a lot of nectar or sugar water for them to build out the frames with beeswax. But then when we got to the third starter frame, we could see that the bees had built out one of the sides a lot, which is super exciting to see. They've got a lot of the wax built out already, and I would imagine they'll be putting in, the queen will be laying eggs in there soon. The other side of that starter frame is starting to be built out, but not as much yet. So then what we did is start to move through the other frames to inspect them. And these frames were already really active. You can go back to our first video of installing the nukes to see that these frames were already thick with bees and capped brood even. It goes by quickly when checking the frames, so I put in a couple stills to show you that here the bees are turning the pollen into bee bread. And here on this next frame, you can see larvae, and also that shiny liquid is the nectar. And that nectar is what the bees will turn into honey. Here, Sai spotted the queen bee right away. There she is with the longer abdomen. The worker bees are going up to her and touching her with their antenna. She's moving around at a unhurried pace, but we put that frame back pretty quickly, not wanting to disturb the queen. Sai applies a little more smoke, and we decided checkerboard in the unfinished frames to encourage the bees to build out honeycomb. So we're mixing them in with the established frames. Here I'm removing burr comb. The bees will build honeycomb in empty spaces like the spaces hanging down below frames. Removing this burr comb definitely stirred up the activity of the bees, and I think in the future I'll only remove burr comb that is actually falling off or causing troubles with spacing in the hive, because I'd like to disturb the bees and their work as little as possible. Besides smoking the bees, which you could see are very active, flying around after removing the burr comb. Here I'm checking a frame that is just thick with bees, and it's got capped brood and very active bees. There's worker bee brood and a few drone cells as well. Here we're continuing to checkerboard in the frames that are not built out, between the frames that are built out with capped brood, and Sai and I are taking turns on all the jobs. Here some burr comb is falling down, falling off, so I removed the piece that's coming down. And we're being pretty quick here. You can see there's a lot of capped worker bee brood, and we're doing these last couple frames quickly. and just checking on and moving around the last frame. So we've got 6 very established frames here with the brood and all the stages of eggs and larvae, and just honeycombing in the couple of frames that were not built out yet. So we decided to build up the next box after checkerboarding in those frames without the built-up comb. You could see size moving up our second brood box there. We've got another deeper brood box, and we had that all ready to go so that it would be quick. We do not have frames already built out with honeycomb, but if you did have some frames built out, those would be good to mix in on your new box, because of course that's a lot of work for the bees to build all the honeycomb. Right away, the bees were fanning at the entrance, which sends their scent for the foraging bees to find their way back home. Thank you for joining us on our hive inspection. It was super exciting to see the bees build out honeycomb frame and to see bee bread and larvae and nectar, and to find the queen. I appreciate you liking our video and subscribing to our channel, Z's Bees.